Doan, formerly of the city of Boulder, now with Lofton. Kate's going to talk to us about the implications of OSHA. And, like my organization and many of yours, we're not really subject to OSHA, but we kind of are as well. So it's a gray, blurry line on whether or not we fall under it or not. So with that, thank you, Kate. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. So yeah, I used to work with the city of Boulder up until January 6th, and then I switched over to Locked-In Companies, which is an insurance broker here in Colorado. So I got permission to still do this presentation, and I'm really excited to see a lot of familiar faces and everyone. My contact info will be on the last slide, so if you guys ever want to stay in touch or ask any questions or anything like that. I'm on the private industry side, which is good and bad, so I'm not serving government and municipalities anymore, but I'm still really excited to be here. Today's topic will be on OSHA. So most of you in the room probably don't have to follow OSHA, so why do you care about it? So, who knows what OSHA is for individuals that have not been in the OSHA training class provided by the city of Boulder? Does anyone else know? What does OSHA stand for?
Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
There you go. When was OSHA created?
1973.
1970. Almost there. Almost there. So it was created by the OSH Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, passed by Congress in 1970. The OSHA department has a director of OSHA. It's part of the United States Department of Labor. So the Labor Secretary, which is elected by the President, is under this division. The director of OSHA has been the same since the Trump presidency, so luckily it's not a very political office. It is really focused on employee safety and health. So with federal OSHA, who does federal OSHA cover? Does it cover any of you here? Yes, no? I see some head nods. So if you're private industry, so you're an occupational health clinic, you're an investigation team, a restoration team, anything like that, you guys would be covered under OSHA. Any government municipalities, counties, anything like that, probably the school districts, you'd be covered under OSHA. So OSHA, federal OSHA only covers most private sector employees and their workers. In all the 50 United States, some territories and other jurisdictions that are under federal authority with the United States. What does Colorado have? Do we have a state-run program or do we follow federal OSHA?
Federal.
Federal. That is correct. So here's a nice little map here. So small key down on the bottom, left-hand corner over there. But you can see that we're light gray. So all of these states in that light gray blue follow federal OSHA. They do not have their own state-run programs there. I previously came from California. I was at a private hospital there. So California has their Cal OSHA or California OSHA that they follow. A huge body that covers the state of California there. And they have one of the most robust, detailed standards that everyone follows. So they take federal OSHA that they have to follow and make it even stricter. So California actually created the workplace violence standards almost 10 years ago now. So I was there at the hospital starting in 2012. 2014 they came out with workplace violence standards for healthcare. So we had to implement an entire workplace violence program based on the California OSHA standard there. So you can see all the other states that are involved. The states that have asterisks there actually have programs that cover state and federal employees that work in that state. But unfortunately, fortunately, you can see Colorado does not have a little asterisk on it there. So we don't have to follow that. So we don't have to follow OSHA. Why do we care about OSHA? Best practice. It's a nice safety standard that we can hold ourselves to. So, I forgot to bring my book today, but the OSHA standard is completely free online, available for you guys to search at any point. You don't need to make a login account or anything like that. You can just Google personal protective equipment OSHA, and that standard will pop up right there. There's also a ton of free resources available for you guys. So when I worked with the city of Boulder, I was brought in almost 4 years ago to create an entire safety program for the city. So with that, I actually went to training classes and became an authorized OSHA instructor. So we started teaching all of our staff the OSHA standard. You could take a 10-hour class, which is over 2 days, so it kind of gives an overview of what OSHA is, certain standards that are in OSHA that we needed to follow. Or you could take a 30-hour class, which was over 4 days. So if you guys are still interested in that, I have a counterpart there, Jay Jones, who's in the open space division there. He is actually still teaching these classes. And we've had a few folks in here actually go through his class. If it's a 30-hour class, it only costs you guys $54, versus if you take it with Red Rocks Community College, it's $700. So if you guys are ever interested in doing anything like that, it's geared more towards municipalities, but there's a lot of good open conversation about policies, procedures, what you guys are and are not doing. So if you guys have any questions on that, you can contact James or Alyssa over here on that. Jay is wonderful. So Lori just went through the class most recently in January. Natalie went through it in October when I was still there. So yeah, we have a lot of great resources available for you guys. So is OSHA the tell-all standard that you need to follow though? Are there other regulations out there that you guys need to follow?
Yep.
What are some of those?
NFPA,
NFPA, National Fire Protection Association,
NIOSH,
NIOSH. So these are just a few. What was that?
MSHA.
MSHA, yep, exactly. So NFPA, American Petroleum Institute, ANSI, the National Standards Institute, American Society for Mechanical Engineering, Compressed Gas Association, Department of Transportation. You guys have commercial driver's license holders?
Yep.
Got to follow DOT. There's a lot of overlap between DOT and OSHA. With the OSHA standard, if there was already a standard out there or a new body has been created since, OSHA will say incorporated by reference. So with fire safety, it'll say you need to have emergency exits, everything like that. Refer to NFPA standard, whatever it might be for more information. So OSHA isn't going to reinvent the wheel and rewrite a standard that's already out there with another association. They're going to reference it and say incorporated by reference. So you'll look at the OSHA standard, and then from there you'll need to go to whatever standard that they reference there and look at what that regulation is there. So with like the city of Boulder and the counties, a lot of arborist associations. So we had a really big forestry department and parks and recreation department with the city of Boulder. And they came through the class almost 2 years ago, and they're like, well, like we work at heights. We don't really have a tie-off point that is engineered and approved by an engineer for us to hold our weight. What are we going to do with that? So I met with them on the side, went out and viewed their operations, and asked, is there another standard that you guys follow? And they referenced the National Arborist Association. So I looked at all of their regulations, and they were doing the best that they could with that. So I told them when it comes to certain things that might conflict with OSHA or might not be included in OSHA, follow that standard. Do you know how many different OSHA standards there actually are? A lot. What do you think? Throw out a number.
which industry? General, construction,
There you go, so that's 2. So how many more are there?
maritime,
agriculture.
There you go. So there's a total of actually 4 different OSHA standards out there. So the city of Boulder decided to follow the general industry standard because that covers the majority of the operations that we were doing. If you're more in construction or anything like that, there's a specific construction industry. There are some similarities between these two, but there are also a lot of differences between them. So when you are searching and Googling if you need a specific standard or reference material, making sure that you're typing in general industry or construction or maritime. So if you're doing any shipping, we're kind of landlocked here, so I don't think any of us are doing any of those operations. But if you ever go anywhere else, so there's any shipyards, marine terminals, longshoring, gear certification associated with maritime, and then actual agriculture as well. So if you have a farm or anything like that, there are a lot of very specific standards associated with agricultural work there. So if you're searching like trenching and shoring, automatically construction standard will pop up. There is no trenching and shoring standard in the general industry standard. So here are some topics that are covered under the general industry standard. You got walking and working surfaces, so slips, trips, and falls. Exit routes, powered platforms, man lifts like forklifts. Environmental controls like ventilation, occupational noise exposure, so how much sound and noise are you being exposed to at one time before you need personal protective equipment or earplugs to protect you. Radiation, if anyone's dealing with radiation in here as well, they got a standard around that. Hazardous materials, compressed gases. Are you guys working with compressed gases at various locations that you guys have? We had at least 6 locations with the city of Boulder that had compressed gas containers stored there. So some of them were actually transported to off-site locations as well. Flammable liquids, and then do you guys generate any hazardous waste? Or if you're a county, do you have a hazardous waste dump that you guys have to follow there? So there are other hazardous waste standards with the federal government that you guys have to follow. Personal protective equipment, fire protection, material handling. So lifting materials properly, using equipment that might be available to you in order to prevent you from getting injured. Hand and portable power tools, welding, cutting, and brazing. So if you're doing any metal work, hot work, anything like that, there's standards around that. Electrical safety. The electrical safety standard is 60 pages long. So if you are like building a building, it talks about wiring and terminals and insulation, how to work on high voltage systems, all that fun stuff. With City of Boulder, we just kind of talked about general over view of safety of like electrical plugs, checking extension cords, checking your power cords, don't overload a socket, anything like that associated with it. If you had hand and portable power tools that were battery operated, as well, battery safety. A lot of things are converting to lithium ion batteries. Remember a few years ago, the Samsung phones, the lithium ion batteries in them would start exploding, so you weren't able to fly if you had a Samsung phone because they were catching fire up in the air on a plane. Very scary. So anything like that would be covered under electrical. Commercial driving operations, there's actually a little section that talks about commercial driving operations, but there's a lot of reference to the DOT standard there. So it's not as robust, but they're doing that incorporated by reference to DOT. And then other toxic hazards and substances. Bloodborne pathogens. Anyone have an issue with bloodborne pathogens and needle sticks and sharps exposures? Yeah. So there's an entire section, again, that's 45 pages long, that's dedicated to bloodborne pathogens within the toxic and hazardous substance portion of the standard there. So that was a big thing with the City of Boulder. We got a police department, we got a fire department. They're doing training, they're doing first responding, all of that. Come on. My computer likes to snooze itself in like 2 minutes if I'm not moving it fast enough. So we did a big training around that. So if you have employees that can be potentially exposed to bloodborne pathogens, you need to have an exposure control plan in place. You need to identify every single person by job description of who potentially can be exposed to bloodborne pathogens. We made it easy in the City of Boulder. We said every single employee. Even myself, even Alyssa, even James. Your coworker had a medical emergency in some fashion and you decide to render first aid, he could potentially be exposed depending on what type of emergency that they're having. They have a gaping wound where there's blood, they're choking on something, they go unconscious, they got bodily fluids everywhere. So everyone has that potential for being exposed. If you guys are ever interested in policies and procedures, when I was at Boulder, I created a 179-page safety manual that covers all of these topics. If you guys want it for free, contact Alyssa and she can share it with you because I spent 2.5 years doing it.
It's a really great read.
It's a wonderful read.
It's an easy read, too.
Our city attorney reviewed it right before I left and she's like, oh my gosh. And I was like, good luck. So yeah, if anyone is interested in that, it's catered more towards City of Boulder, but it has an overview of all of these policies and procedures on the operations that we do within the city. We're happy to share it with you. So the OSHA construction standard. So there are a few operations that we did within the City of Boulder that actually fell under the construction standard there. Sometimes there's different PPE, signs, signals, and barricades associated with around construction sites. How are you keeping your employees safe and members of the public and other patrons safe while you're there? Scaffolds, stairways, and ladders, helicopters, hoists, elevators, and conveyors. Those aren't listed in the general industry standard, but they're used a lot in the construction operations there. Concrete and masonry construction, so they actually have standards on how to pour concrete, how thick it needs to be, what material it needs to be made of, when you can and can't pour it, When it's under 30 degrees outside, you actually can't pour concrete. It's not going to sit well. So the structural integrity is not going to hold up. So, demolition and blasting. So they're doing blasting operations there. And then excavation. There's a big thing going on, unfortunately, with the city of Greeley. Last year, they had a trench collapse. And 2 people died in it. And they weren't using shoring boxes, which are big, huge steel boxes that go down in the trench and hold the walls in place while you're working down there. Every single trench collapse death is associated with someone not having the trenching material boxes in the holes. So Fort Collins issued a wonderful statement last year that they had a zero tolerance policy with any of their contractors. So Boulder was working on trying to implement that in place. Police and fire had the authority to go shut down any construction site within the city limits if they didn't have a shoring box in it. So we were starting to work towards giving our engineers and our utility folks that authority as well. Because that's one thing that City of Boulder, the fire department, they have a technical rescue team there that services Louisville. They partner with Longmont and everything like that. With the amount of growth in Louisville and Superior recovering from the Marshall Fire, their number one concern, talking with the fire chief and captains there, is trench collapses and rescues. So keep that in mind. OSHA.gov is a free resource for all of you guys to reference. So if you guys are ever looking at anything that you guys need, just type in OSHA to Google, and that's the first thing that pops up there. Their main thing right now, none of us in the public sector have to file OSHA logs, but if you're in the private sector, you have to post all of your injuries by February 1st every single year. So any employee injury that happens, so OSHA's big banner right now is reminding everyone that they had to do that by February 1st there. And then if they are on the auditing system, they have to submit their audit results over to OSHA by March 2nd there. So there's a ton of free resources here. So if you need all the standards, there's laws and regulations over here. Maybe. So again, general industry, construction, maritime, agriculture. If you are a private industry and need to do record keeping, they have everything free for you online right there. Resource available for you. Health and safety topics. You guys are doing toolbox talks, tailgate talks, kind of weekly check-ins. There are hundreds of free resources, so never use the excuse of, I don't know what to talk about. If you don't know what to talk about, everything is listed free online for you guys to be able to download here. Specifically, if you guys ever want presentations around a safety topic, the Susan Hartwood grants. So these are individuals that put together presentations on various topics and submitted them to OSHA, and now they're completely free. And you can see what industry, what the safety topic is, what language it's offered in as well. All of that is completely free for you guys to download. So when creating our OSHA presentations for the 10-hour and 30-hour class, we use a lot of our reference material from here and then the training classes that we went through in order to get our certifications. So again, if you guys ever need training resources, there are a ton of free things available for you here. As we start moving into spring and summertime and it starts getting hot, they will have kind of heat warning, what to look out for heat exhaustion if you're working outside. And then when we came into wintertime, October, November, they also had cold weather working. Free flyers, materials on there as well. Last year in May, we had a heat wave pretty early on where we got up into the 90s here, which feels like 100 due to our elevation. So our recreation team, the Boulder Parks and Rec, has a reservoir that has lifeguards that work on it, and they have a little beach area and marina and everything like that. So I actually went and talked to all of the seasonal employees and the full-time employees that worked at the reservoir to talk about heat exhaustion and what signs and symptoms to look for and what you should and should not consume to stay hydrated. So caffeine actually dehydrates you, energy drinks. So like water, if you've heard of like Gatorade, Liquid IV, anything like that. So we gave a presentation to them on the do's and don'ts of that and signs and symptoms on what to look for. Luckily for them, they were really good. They were really good at calling 911, especially when they had patrons that were going through something. They weren't Saying, oh, they're fine, it's okay, they can transport themselves to the hospital, whatever. They were really good at calling 911. We had other departments, for whatever reason, they were really afraid to call 911. But if it is work-related, as we know, workers' comp pays for all of that, so the employee shouldn't be worried about that. So again, tons of free resources available for you guys on here. And again, if you just Google like OSHA personal protective equipment, OSHA trenching and shoring, OSHA bloodborne pathogens, it'll take you directly to the standard and all of their free material that they have available for you. So specifically with the general industry standard, this is the table of contents. So every single topic in the general industry OSHA standard is listed right here. And you can specifically click on any one of these things and it'll take you to that part of the standard. If you guys ever want an OSHA standards book, they're about $60 online. It's about this thick. You go through the OSHA 30-hour class, you actually get that standards book there. They make adjustments every year, very minor kind of word changes here and there. There actually hasn't been a major update to a specific standard in 8 years now. So if you guys are ever just like, I have my original book from 2020 when I went through my OSHA classes and everything like that. And a few words here and there have changed, but overall the standards themselves have not changed. So sometimes it's easier for me to read the book if I have to look at a standard. Sometimes it's easier for me to Google it and search for it on here. So, back. There we go. So, with the OSHA standards that are out there, I was using that as a reference point with the City of Boulder to start building their safety program there. And now what creates a good safety program? How do you build a good safety program? So we have a lot of folks in here that are like newer to their roles in kind of the health and safety area within the municipalities, and you guys are starting to work on policies and procedures, training and education for your staff. All of this is actually free online on the OSHA website too, so if you need kind of help jump starting on like where you should start to build a safety program, all of this is on their website as well, and really easy to read PDFs that you guys can download free of charge. So the benefits of a health and safety program: we want to keep all of you and your employees safe and healthy at work. Fair? You guys don't want to go to work where it's a really dangerous environment where you think you're going to get a serious injury, potentially not go home, or never go home at all. I've been fortunate enough where I've never had to call a family member and say that their family member is never coming home. But I have had to make that call previously, not with the City of Boulder, on my previous job out in California, saying that their loved one, their daughter, their son, their child was hospitalized due to a massive injury, and they're going to be in the hospital for a few days. And it's going to be a long road to recovery. Not a fun conversation to have on that. It can improve your recruiting and retention of employees. So what kind of benefits do you guys offer your employees? What kind of training and education are you offering them? Are you keeping them safe at work? Generally speaking, a lot of cities talk with each other. We had a lot of employees that came from CDOT at the City of Boulder in the Transportation and Utilities Division. And they talked about, wow, I get free PPE here. I get training. Supposedly at CDOT, they had to buy everything on their own, even though it's not legal. When it comes to certain PPE, eye protection, hearing protection, high visibility clothing, and everything, you as the employer have to provide that. You actually don't need to provide work boots unless they are like chemical resistant or steel toe required. But if they're composite toe or safety toe, you actually don't have to pay for those if you don't want to. But with the City of Boulder, they had a really good program where they had a uniform and PPE policy where they gave employees $375 for boots once a year because they were on their feet 8, 9, 10 hours a day depending on what their job was. They also gave them funding to buy like winter jackets and summer clothing that had like wicking material to help them with sweating and body temperature. It can improve your output and process. So if everyone's doing a job the same way, God forbid someone gets injured, someone else could then step in and continue to do that job. So it's actually better if you guys train everyone the same way, because overall, it does make the work go faster and smoother. Oh, come on. There we go. More favorable image and reputation. So we know the news media likes to go after any little thing. Boulder has a lovely local news source called the Daily Camera. They find out any little thing and talk to communications, or they post stuff. And so, oh, hey, I heard you had a COVID outbreak in transportation. What are you going to say about that? It was 2 people that got COVID in different departments, so it wasn't that. But as we know, like with Greeley, it was all in the news for several weeks about the trench collapse and the deaths. So people listen, they hear about that. Pueblo also had something at a concrete facility where 2 individuals, contractors, were working on a mound of soil, and it collapsed and buried them. And they died from suffocation because they couldn't get to them in time. That was in the news. Overall, it actually saves money too. So the risk management department, when I was there, was 4 people. Got up to 5 right before I left. We got a budget approval for our ADA coordinator position and everything like that. But overall, you know, you guys are paying insurance premiums. You're paying workers' comp costs every single year. It's actually cheaper for someone to go through a $700 class than it is for them to get injured. You got your medical bills, you got your treatment, you got your TTD, your partial disability, lost time, overtime for individuals that need to continue the work to make sure the project gets potentially done on time, or you got to file extensions, you get additional permits, you got to rent equipment longer, whatever it might be. So overall, it actually saves money, and if you guys are implementing a good safety program and you have less and less injuries, you have a hopefully smaller insurance premium when it comes to workers' comp or auto accidents, whatever it might be. So now you can free up some of that cash and it can go somewhere else in your budget. As we know, with the potential new bill, we're all strapped for cash. You guys have a limited budget in municipalities and government. Taxed by your dollars, that's it. So if you're able to free up that money and provide other resources or give back to your employees, whatever it might be, a better way to do everyone and have them all go through training than for them to get injured. So these are the core elements that could create a good health and safety program. Doesn't necessarily have to start with the top, but it's really nice to have leadership involvement and support on that, instead of building an entire program and then going up to them and saying, nope, now you've wasted all that time and energy on that. So with management leadership, we want to make sure that they demonstrate commitment to continuous improvement and safety as well. So if they say, yep, we're going to support you, making sure they're actually performing their job safe, or if they're coming out on site and working or shadowing some of your employees, making sure that they're not showing up in high heels or flip-flops and they're wearing the appropriate high visibility safety gear, work boots, safety glasses, hard hats, whatever it might be. Sometimes they might not know, so we might need to educate them as well. And also, if they say that they're going to support it, if you guys have initiatives that you present to them, hopefully they approve it and they help push it out as well. So provides adequate funding and resources as well. So if you guys are taking a look, I heard there are a few other safety positions in here, or folks that are starting to work on it, which is wonderful. But do you need a bigger team in order to accomplish everything based on the size of your organization? In the construction field, there is 1 safety person for every 50 employees on a construction site. How many safety professionals do you guys have in your organization? When I worked at the hospital that I was at in California, there were 2 dedicated safety professionals for 15,000 employees. Their injury rate was a 10.6, so 10.6 injured employees per 100 employees. Majority of those were out of work too, so we were paying lost time. California, whole other ballgame. No one wants to work in California. And then, oh, I got a paper cut. I want to be off work for a week. I found in Colorado here, a lot of people really want to actually get back to work as quickly as possible, so we kind of have to tell them to pump the brakes and take a few days off if they are told by their physician to take time off. So, and then prioritize and set that good example, like we had mentioned. We need employee participation. So when I was writing all the policies and procedures with the City of Boulder, I was going to every single department and asking them, what work do you guys do? What policies would be beneficial for you guys to have in place? I drafted everything and then I sent them out to everyone. The police department, the fire department, transportation division, engineering, water treatment, water distribution. We have a hydroelectric plant. I totally forgot about them when it came to electricity. So I sent it to like our fleet manager, the fire department, and was like, hey, take a look at this. What do you guys think? And one of them was like, hey, have you sent this to Jake over in hydroelectric? And I was like, nope. Totally forgot about him. Thank you for reminding me, though. So as I was writing things, I was sending them out to all these departments, frontline staff, supervisors, managers, directors, and getting all of their feedback on this, and is this even applicable to you? In certain cases where I say contact facilities if something was broken in your building, our two water treatment plants and our wastewater treatment plant have their own maintenance crews on site. They don't deal with our facilities teams. So I say, hey, this wasn't applicable to us. You need to change the language to, contact the on-site facilities folks. Great. So making sure you include your employees in developing your program. What's going to work with them, what's not going to work with them. Sometimes you might get a little pushback. That's okay. Let's try to woo them in as much as possible. Now, open communication with management. Are they comfortable talking to you or their supervisors or city manager, whoever it might be, on a concern that's going on? And are you going to address it? Or can they go to the HR department, depending on what it is? So I had built that relationship with Boulder coming into it. Transportation and utilities hated risk management. Hated them. Did not want to talk to us at all. Finally broke them down after showing up almost every day for 6 months, saying hi. Was not above bribery of bringing them donuts and coffee and bagels and everything like that. And by the time I left, I was getting text messages from people and calls saying, hey, we're thinking about doing this, or hey, we kind of screwed up, we flipped a snowplow. How do we do that? So working with them and making sure that they can come and trust you guys if they have a concern or they have an idea, and taking a look at that and seeing if it is something that's feasible that you guys can implement. Not everything is going to be, I understand that, but trying as much as possible. Hazard identification and assessment. So are you guys doing facility walkthroughs and looking at all your facilities for hazards? All the lights in good working condition? Are your emergency exits open and available and not blocked? Are there any trip hazards on the ground that individuals can be tripping? A lot of surfaces between like carpet and tile or linoleum, carpet can come up at times and create a tripping hazard. If you guys have heavy machinery, vehicles, or they're leaking oil or coolant on the ground, that could be slipping hazard for individuals. So I was doing facility assessments at Boulder on various locations that kind of had high hazard work areas. Our fleet building, so all of the vehicles are serviced in-house with the city of Boulder. They have over 1,200 vehicles and equipment that they had to service. So it was a very active building. So I would go in, they had compressed gases because they were doing welding operations. They had various fluids. They had a tire machine to pry off really big old tires from their massive dump trucks and put new ones on. So I was taking a look at all of their equipment and their facilities and making sure it was as safe as possible for their employees. As I'm walking around too, are their employees wearing their safety glasses? Yeah. During COVID, were they wearing their mask? That was always fun. So doing those periodic inspections and then continuously reassessing everything and making sure they're following up with things that you find. If you guys ever need like inspection checklists or anything, OSHA has a ton of those available for you as well on things to look at. I'm going to a client of mine, which is a hospital, after this, and doing an OSHA audit for them. So I'm going to go through and look at all their facilities, their equipment, their boiler rooms, mechanical rooms, housekeeping areas, kitchens, everything like that, and seeing what hazards are associated with that and how their employees are trained, and asking them. Prioritize those hazards that you might find greatest to least and start working your way and correcting all of those. Some of them might not be corrected right away. It's like a facility improvement and everything like that. That costs money. Gotta do a capital improvement project there. But is there something temporary that we can put in place, like painting the ground, the elevation change, or anything like that, to bring attention to people as they're walking so they're not tripping on that until we can actually get the new concrete pad poured? Hazard prevention. So like we had mentioned, reference OSHA standards or any other industry best practices that you guys might read and reference. Again, OSHA isn't the tell-all there. There are a ton of other industry standards out there that you guys might follow. Select options to eliminate, prevent, or control workplace hazards. So that's a big thing. Remember that. There's some slides coming up there that I'll quiz you on. Implementation plan. So again, when I came to Boulder, James was like, here you go. Have fun. Create a plan. Let me know how it goes. I'm like, okay. So with my previous employer at the hospital again, we had an external auditor come in and do a 2-month audit of every single thing in the hospital. Again, 15,000 employees. Massive undertaking. Out of that, we got a 400-page action item report.
of everything that we did not have in place or we're not doing associated with OSHA. And then with hospitals, they need Joint Commission, which gives them the accreditation to be a hospital and treat people. So with that, we started working our way through all of that. So we want to make sure that you guys have an implementation plan and update it as needed. I had everything going, and then COVID happened. Yay, COVID. So I had to delay things and kind of update my due dates and realistic expectations of things because I had to pivot and help out with COVID during that time. Progress tracker, where are you on things? Providing updates to maybe executive leadership. Hopefully they're involved with this and they want to know what's going on with your program. So providing updates for them, getting in front of them. That's how my previous employer to Stanford, that's how we were so successful. We had quarterly updates with the CEO, CFO, COOs, VPs of HR, and the VPs of trauma. Every quarter. They were very invested on what was going on. They were spending, what was it? They were spending $15 million a month in workers' comp. Give me $2 million and we can reduce that number by 30%. Return on investment, we were able to do it. So in the 3 years, once we started implementing things, we reduced injuries by 35% in our injury rate, which meant more people were staying at work and less people were off, higher turnover, all that. And then verify whatever you put in place, your policies, your procedures, your training, verify that those are working. So doing an annual audit or as needed. If someone gets injured, hey, were you trained on this policy? Yes, you were. What happened here? No, I just didn't follow it. Or, oh, I didn't know that was in the policy. Okay, so now let's go through a process of retraining everyone or training that specific employee on what happened to make sure that they don't do that again. Making sure, again, you're doing that training and education with everyone throughout the organization. Train them on how to recognize workplace hazards. So you guys start doing facility assessments, ask people to come along with you. So we had safety committees in various departments, and so as I was touring their buildings, I would invite them along and their supervisors. So I'd start training them. Hey, we walk into this room, do you guys see any hazards? What I'm doing here is I'm looking at ceiling, I'm looking at lights, I'm looking at flooring, trash cans, emergency exits, all that. Is there anything that you've noticed here? And I might say yes or no, and I'd be like, over there. And they're like, oh, okay. So you don't have to be the only one that's doing all of that. Train all of your employees so they can start recognizing those hazards as well, and then they can start correcting things on their own. Usually it's a simple fix, like if an emergency exit is blocked, clear that area. Make sure those boxes, those trash cans, those chairs aren't blocking that. Because if there's an emergency, what's going to happen? Everyone's going to be in a panicked mode. Remember COVID, March 2020, when everything was shutting down, you all ran out of toilet paper? You go to the grocery store and going to Costco? I went to Costco stupidly on a Thursday. Once everything was shut down, I didn't need toilet paper, cleaning products. I wanted some chicken, I wanted some coffee, I want some eggs. So I'm there. You know, Costco has those huge sets of emergency exit doors. There's 2 sets of them. When you push out, it says alarm will sound if you push, on them or you exit this exit. Go buy some. 10 feet of boxes stacked in front of the emergency exits. Everyone's already pissed off at me because I left my cart to go get eggs, and the dairy section, of course, is where the toilet paper is. So everyone was mad. Hey, you're kind. You're going to steal mine. I was like, there's no toilet paper back there. Why do you bother? I'm going to go get some eggs and some milk. So everyone's already high alert, very upset with each other, and now the emergency exit's blocked. So if there actually was an emergency or a fire where people had to leave the building, what do you think was going to happen with that emergency exit? Luckily they were just boxes, but people would probably plow over each other and trying to get out of the exit in a panic. So we really want to make sure that those areas are kept clear and free in case there is an emergency. That's what they're there for. You're usually not using that as a general entrance and exit from a building. Periodic evaluations. Monitoring program compliance. So again, when I'm going out and doing facility inspections, I go up to someone, say, hey Jessica, I heard that you were trained recently in slip, trips, and falls. How's that going? You're in charge of this building. Do you put out mats, when it snows? Do you guys have a snow removal program? Anything like that. So asking your employees, seeing if they really know what's going on, or did they just click through the training module and not pay attention to anything? So I found when I was going out on site a lot of employees would start approaching me voluntarily and say, hey, I found this issue, can you come look at it real quick? Or they'd call us saying, hey, we're about to do this new operation, do you have any issues with this? So getting in front of your employees is really important. Don't sit behind your desk all day. And then take action. If something is found or something is not working, look at it. With the policies with the City of Boulder, I said risk management had to review on an annual basis. Otherwise, our safety policy was 18 years old. And it was a one-pager that said, contact human resources for help. Love human resources. They do a lot of great work, but they're not very safety-oriented, at least with the City of Boulder. So making sure that those are reviewed, so taking responsibility. That's why HR was supposed to be in charge of all the City of Boulder's policies, 18 years old. Our workplace violence policy was 16 years old. Hazard communication, dealing with chemicals and training and the environment on how to handle things. Again, one paragraph, contact human resources for help on your hazard communication plan. Not very good. And as you guys are implementing things, having that communication across the organization. And if you guys are working with contractors or having contractors come on site, make sure they know what your expectations are. Contractors are private entities. They got to follow OSHA. So ask them for their safety plan. Hey, you guys are going to be doing some welding operations in our building. What are you going to do to make sure you don't catch our building or anything on fire? This happened again at my previous job, a 100-year-old historic building. The university had a contractor working on the second floor, and we had employees on the first floor and the third floor. They were doing some welding. The sparks from the welding operations got down in between the walls, down on the first floor. Didn't have what they call a fire watch to stay for at least an hour after they were done with operations to make sure nothing caught on fire, and the building caught on fire. The vice president of construction happened to see it at 9:30 p.m. at night when he was going back to his car. So he was able to call 911. Luckily he was there. If not, the building would have been totally gone. But we had smoke damage and water damage to all of our operations on the first floor. So it cost us $500,000 in damage for all of our materials that were there. We had various massive printing plotters and everything like that. But guess what? The university got to pay for everything, not us, because it was their contractor. So all of these elements are what create a good and healthy safety program. Again, all of this material is online for you guys to download. If you get the OSHA standards book too, on like Roman numeral page 8, these are all listed in there as well. So if you guys are stumped on where to start, we have a ton of free resources there for you. The benefits of all of those controls, again, like we talked about, keeps your employees safe from hazards, avoid those injuries, illnesses, and incidents, minimize and or eliminate safety and health risks, and provides that safe working environment and conditions for your employees. What do you think is the best way to keep employees safe at work? What can you do to keep your employees safe at work? What's the best thing? Training. PPE. Those aren't the most effective. Avoidance.
Elimination.
Yep. So elimination. Yep. Avoidance or elimination. So at the City of Boulder, we were having a unhoused or a homeless population issue. So we had hired a contractor. If there was a tent and everything that was sitting there, we'd hire this contractor, Serpo, to come in and clean it up. So we were eliminating that hazard of our employees from doing that work. You got bodily fluids, you got needles, you got drug paraphernalia. Are any of your employees trained on how to remove all of that? No. So we were trying to have a contractor do all that. So we were eliminating that hazard from our employees doing that work. Fortunately, they hired an internal team that now just does all of that for them. So if you can't eliminate the issue, what's the next best thing?
Substitution.
Has someone seen this before? So substitution, replace the hazard. So our Open Space and Mountain Parks Division was using a lot of wood products to create wood fencing, barricades on the ground for parking lots so vehicles wouldn't run into a fence. They were treating it with linseed oil, which is a highly flammable liquid that treats and makes wood products, like water resistant, so they don't get moldy and everything like that. They had done training and education with all their employees on, hey, if you use linseed oil and you use a rag, put it in a flammable container, because linseed oil reacts with oxygen and creates a fire.
Someone didn't do that, left it on a workbench on a Friday afternoon. Someone happened to go in Saturday morning. The building was billowing smoke. Horrible idea, but that person ran into the building and found there was only a small fire, about 2 feet by 2 feet, and it was the rag on fire on top of a concrete bench. And it was a linseed oil rag. Okay, so let's go train everyone again. Hey, if you have a linseed oil rag, you're going to put it in a flammable container. Someone took a rag, threw it out in the dumpster 4 months later. Dumpster caught on fire. So they're like, okay, we can't use linseed oil anymore. No one's following it. They replaced it with lemon oil, which apparently has the same effect with treating wood. Lemon oil is not flammable. So they have eliminated and substituted one product for another that is safer now. So they have eliminated that fire risk associated with using that chemical. Okay, if you can't eliminate and you can't substitute for a safer product, what should we do? Someone said training, someone said PPE. What if there is a hazard, there's a rotating part right here? Am I just going to go walk up and stick my hand on it? What's going to prevent me from getting in contact with that rotating part? Separation, engineering. So a physical barrier. Go look at your things and make them as idiot-proof as possible. Someone's like, ooh, shiny, spinny thing. Lose their finger. We don't want that. So what can you do to isolate people from the hazard? So someone said training, so what they call administrative controls. Change the way people work. And that includes job shift or job rotations as well. So don't have someone doing the same job for 8 hours a day, like using a jackhammer or driving a forklift. That has a lot of vibration associated with it. If there's a team of 4, have each person do things for 30 minutes to an hour at a time so they don't get muscle fatigue and start getting an ergonomic related injury associated with that. And last but not least, what is the least effective thing that can keep you safe at work? So you should be going through all of these other 4 steps and seeing what you can do before issuing PPE to your employees. Sometimes it is, it's the only thing that you can do. But you need to be looking at all their tasks and looking and seeing if you can do any one of these 4 things before issuing PPE. Any questions? So again, most of you don't have to follow OSHA, but it's a nice, good standard that's out there that covers a lot of industries that you can utilize, and a lot of free material from that.
Question back there.
Yep.
So Kate, when you were talking about contractors coming in from the outside, in an RFP process, I only know what comp and other lines of business. Do you actually request loss runs from that contractor to ensure that they have? It's less their mod, more about liability claims and things like that. Do you actually get that information?
So my current job, yes, we do. In order for them to be able to work with Boulder, we had language in the contract that you had to follow all applicable OSHA regulations. They didn't go as far to request their loss runs or anything like that. My previous job at the hospital, we were also building 2 brand new hospitals at the same time. So we were doing construction safety and hospital safety, what they call an owner-controlled insurance program. So we owned all safety aspects and got to decide who worked on our construction site and who didn't. And from that, our broker at the time had a very strict application process where they had to submit all of their loss runs, all of their insurance requirements, all of their policies and procedures and training records for every single employee that was going to be on our site. And then they were given a score based on what they had, and they had to have a score of 80 or higher in order to work on our site. Because some contractors, they were like, oh yeah, we, injure 5 people a week, and then we just replace them because they don't want to come back to work. So that's kind of the construction industry. If you can't do the job, someone else will do it for you. So we also did a lot of job protection for those employees that were injured, and saying, hey, where's Joe Schmo? I know that he was on restricted work. He could be working in the office today. Oh, he decided to quit and get another job. No, you just didn't want to accommodate him being in the office versus out in the field. So yeah.
So with the OSHA or CSIP that you brought that up, do you have any premise to have wearables on people coming in and out of the job site? Because they're only on the job site, so that's the only time they're exposed to that comp claim or claim for you. But as soon as they walk off, so I'm just wondering if that's something that you have looked at, and is it something feasible for the public entity space?
Totally up to you guys on what you guys want to do with it. You know, there's a lot of data associated with that, and people are all worried about privacy and tracking them and everything like that. So it's just what your risk appetite is, and if your attorneys want to take it on. We have some clients now within my new company that do that. So some of their operations are so specialized and it's top secret of what they do, that they do have people do that. So it's just, you know, what you guys, your general appetite is for it. So, good questions. There are a few other here? Yeah.
I was just curious, when you said you were at Costco and saw the boxes blocking the exit, did you say anything to anybody?
Yeah. So I went and checked out. Sorry.
I would have been surprised if you said no, you didn't.
I am that nerd where I'm walking around and everything, and I look at stuff like downtown Denver, all the construction sites. You know, they have got steel plates over and trip hazard. I will stop and be like, hey, is there a foreman around here? Which is the kind of general manager of that construction site. Yeah, what's up? Hey, this steel plate is up 6 inches. Like, I just tripped on it and almost fell.
Wow.
You guys, like, I will stay until it's fixed. So yeah, when I checked out, I asked for a manager, and I walked back and was like,
Yeah.
you see, everyone is so upset today and mean to you. I stayed for half an hour while you got 4 employees and they took all the boxes to the back.
Wow.
But they have machines that collapse boxes. I understand it was just they were so inundated that they're like, we have nowhere to put these right now
Right.
because they're all doing these other jobs. But yeah, I stayed for half an hour until they cleared all exit. Yep.
Wish more people did that.
Yeah. I am that nerd that walks around like I see it all. So, any other questions? Okay, sorry we're a few minutes over, but I really appreciate it. Contact information now if you guys need to get in contact with me. Alyssa and James also still have it with the City of Boulder if you guys ever need it. I do need to run. I have to go see a client, do an OSHA audit for them at 1:30. But it was very nice to see all of you and meet some new faces in here. I wish you guys the best of luck, and unfortunately I probably won't be around much. Vale Health is a client of mine though, so no one get injured when you guys go to the annual conference in August. They're very nice people though, so if anything does happen, let me know. So, awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, real quick, there should be a sign-in sheet circulating around for everyone to check their name off on that. It's somewhere. Okay, great. Our next meeting will be Thursday, April 20th at the Bison Ridge Recreation Center in Commerce City. And we're going to be talking about First Amendment auditors and de-escalation techniques.
And Second Amendment auditors.
And Second Amendment auditors. There's some new things coming for us all in risk management to deal with. That presentation is going to be put on by the Larimer County Sheriff's Department, as well as our Larimer County Security Manager are going to be doing that presentation for us. Also, remember, in March, you'll be getting an email on this tomorrow that RIMS has invited us to go to their monthly meeting at the Olympic Training Center. So I'd encourage everybody to go down there. It sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. And with that, thanks everybody for coming, and we will see you. Oh, Brendan wants to talk.
So in April, hope to see you all, but any dietary restrictions, let me know. Our restaurant will, if they can accommodate.
Gluten-free.
What's that?
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free?
Please. I already know this.
Done.
Oh, Jackie, yeah.
All right. Well, any other